Hi there, and welcome to Light Shadows. Light Shadows is an hour-long interview show focused on people and topics relevant to our viewers in the Athens, Ohio area and Southeast Ohio. We focus especially, but not exclusively, on issues of sustainability and green energy, wellness and health, quality of life, the arts, spirituality, and community, and look at the many unique contributions that local citizens are making to our area. I'm Becky Shining Bearheart, today's host, and my guest is Kyle O'Keefe with Rural Action. Just want you to know, too, that you can access our programs online at actv9.com. Just click on the icon for Light Shadows at the top of the page, and you can access the YouTube channel there or go to their Facebook page and find it that way. So. Okay, Kyle. So you have been working with Rural Action on the Zero Waste program.
That's correct. And thank you for having me here today. It's a real pleasure. But yes, I've been working with Rural Action for about 3 or 4 years now. And correct, I coordinate the Zero Waste Initiative program for Rural Action. So,
okay. So can you talk a little bit about how you came to work with Rural Action? What was it about that organization that?
Yeah, well, you know, personally, very engaged with all sorts of issues pertaining to ecological design and sustainability. Growing up at an early age in Columbus, actually, my family was developers. They would build these communities, and it was just always an eye-opening experience realizing that these bigger communities are built on other systems and never able to sustain themselves. So from an early point in my life, I kind of was always questioning how can we build a community that has all the things that it needs to sustain itself.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, it's been pretty fascinating and opportunistic to be in that position of learning those systems. So since then I went on to just kind of travel and learn from other people and places. Ended up taking classes at Hocking College. It's a very hands-on school, very much teaching you about what's going on around your environment, how to interact with it. So that was a good kind of place to learn a lot about ecology and other sustainability principles.
So what did you study there specifically?
Yeah, I studied the ecotourism degree there. So it was pretty diverse. It also allowed you to travel, go to other countries, explore other cultures, learn a lot about sustainability practices. So it was an excellent degree and time experience.
Yeah.
So.
I've heard really good things about that program and a lot of others up there. So.
Yeah, excellent faculty and great opportunities for students who want to get hands-on involved with things that they're interested in.
So then after that?
Yeah, well, even at Hocking, as that was ending, I was fortunate enough to even take a course, a permaculture design course. It was actually one of the first permaculture courses offered in Ohio. It was at the United Plant Savers back in 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
And excellent experience, kind of eye-opening and fit right into the principles I've been trying to learn about designing and community elements and things of that nature.
Right.
So that was a great time. And from there, went on to live and work in the Virgin Islands at the what's called the Virgin Islands Sustainable Farm Institute. Sort of an educational facility, about a 200-acre piece of land that has all of its own food needs, all of its own water, all of its own electricity, sort of an educational place for people from all over the world to kind of come and learn about subtropical agriculture and sustainable living. So. Wow.
So were you doing a lot of green energy things there, or what? I mean, what all did they?
They, it was almost 100% solar powered. I mean, again, you're in the Virgin Islands, you get a lot of sunshine, so that's a wonderful thing about it. And again, had some really good groundwater, fresh water. It was very fortunate and probably one of the most beautiful places I've been. So that combined with all of our own food needs, a lot of agroforestry practices, a lot of just perennial crops and fruits, and other things like CSAs and stuff like that, what we would do. Also kind of harvest our own timber, do all those types of practices. And when I got there, I was in the position of helping to design a residential program, so students would come there and actually live on the farm for about 4 months and they would take, every week would be a different course, or 2 weeks, they would learn about sustainable building, or about solar energy and biofuels, all the way to agroforestry systems, water design for farms, all these types of practices.
And that, I'm assuming, is still ongoing.
It is still ongoing, so if
Yeah.
people are interested, they can look it up. It's
Did you
also,
find that through hawking? How did you stumble on that?
I think it was at a point where I had finished with hawking. I'd taken this course and really just wanted to go out, explore, and learn, and get my hands dirty. And then I came across the Virgin Islands Sustainable Farm Institute, and I forget, it was very serendipitous, and connected with the owner, fortunately, and we had some things in common and knew some of the same people, and he said, "Come on down, we got this thing going on, and I want you to help out." So,
Lovely.
yeah.
Yeah. So then, from there, how long was it till you connected with Rural Action?
Yeah, so I was down there for about 2 years, and at a point which, I realized, a lot of the good work that's going on there, has been wonderful, and debated staying, but, a lot of what's going on here, in the U.S. and Ohio, in my mind, I was even considering the front lines of places that needed more assistance and help to, put some of these things into practice. So made the decision to come back, and came back to Columbus, and actually from there went and did some teaching at Hawking College, and even in the Bahamas there's a course offered for ecotourism, and did some adjunct teaching down there. And ultimately, was in Southeast Ohio, and knew about Rural Action just from living here previously, and yeah, just wanted to get engaged. I did a Vista internship with them, for a summer internship with their sustainable agriculture program, and helped them with the Chester Hill Produce Auction, other things taking place out there right as they were in their transition of ownership of that facility. And so that was a wonderful experience in helping with that and really getting engaged with the community. And as that position ended, this position for the Zero Waste Initiative, at the time it was just sort of around recycling, became available, and my whole past in terms of design principles and resources was all about eliminating waste at that point. And so I thought it'd be fascinating, and just personally passionate about trying to figure out how to actually, instead of eliminating waste from the start, dealing with waste as an actual product, and seeing about how you turn this into a solution instead of a problem.
Right.
So
tell us, how do you do that?
Well, that's a wonderful question. It's an ongoing thing. The world of waste is by all means fascinating. If we don't learn how we deal with these resources, and that's purely what they are, anything around you could be considered waste at some point. So all they are is resources, and mismanaged resources is what becomes waste. And it's really the first step if we're going to learn how to sustain ourselves and live as a community on this earth, is really learning how do we manage these properly. And so, as you begin to peer into that and learn more about the problems and the challenges and what's existed in the past, and how fundamental it is to us as humans, that we generate stuff. I was actually talking with a class yesterday about global consumption, an Ohio University class, and just trying to open their eyes to what's taking place out there. But the question of, have you gone a day, could you go a day without throwing something away in the trash? None of them, imagined they could, and so it's just fascinating to challenge people to think about it. So it's a interesting subject. It applies to all of us, and really these issues do revolve around local solutions. Right. All the way from having a recycling program that's available to you, to knowing, actually what is going on with recycling. Where do these materials go? What do they become? What's the impact of me burning, my trash in my backyard, on my personal health, on my neighbor's health, on my community?
So do you do programs like that? I mean, obviously you were speaking to this class, but is that pretty common as part of your job, that you have to do a lot of outreach and like teaching in those kinds of formats?
Yeah, I think it's critical. I think when you can connect with people one-on-one, or in that type of a learning environment, it has the greatest impact, and people have the opportunity to ask questions and things they've always been curious about. So I think, for one, yes, it's just necessary. I'm also passionate about it, and fortunate enough it's part of the job. So
right.
Yeah.
So anybody who was viewing here, if they belong to a church or were involved in the school system in some way,
Right.
or or affiliated with one of the higher learning institutions could call you up and say, do a presentation for this group.
Absolutely. We'd love to come out and do a presentation for any type of group or get them involved. There's a number of ways to get involved, and we can talk about that in a little bit, just a different, kind of internships, but also just volunteer opportunities, all sorts of things that are available, through this program, or just connecting people to the other people that they want to work with. We're happy to do that. So.
Right. So let's see. If you were to break down kind of how you do the zero waste thing, like obviously there's recycling, but there's lots of other things that people can do to reduce waste.
Absolutely. I mean, it all starts with waste reduction. It all starts with the choices that we make when we go to the store, with the things that we buy. We can decide to buy things in bulk. We can decide to, even grow our own food or canned food. There's lots of different options, even with the packaging that you do generate. When I go shopping, I try to be smart about those materials. If it's even like something that I can't recycle, I think twice about it. At least, is this something I necessarily need? Is there another product that is recyclable that's related to it? So, but yeah, taking your own bags to the store, is a huge step forward.
Every week.
Yep. It's an easy thing to do. It's available to everybody, and it makes sense to do. There's small steps that people can take, and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. But once you adopt those into your lifestyle, you'll realize that you're generating less waste, you're being more efficient with your own resources, and you're doing something good for the community. But there's a lot of dynamics to recycling. And, for a moment, I'll just speak about the city of Athens, since this is, our viewers, and how that relates to recycling. The city of Athens was actually the first curbside recycling program in the state of Ohio.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Is this an awesome community?
It is.
What?
It
It's
is.
so great.
It is awesome. And that was back in 1984. That curbside recycling program got started. And so that was really just created by the community. It was something that the community wanted to see, and so they got together and they started this program. And that was even before state legislation had kind of mandated some certain goals for recycling. This community was doing it on its own. So that was one of the amazing things that happened to get this all started in the city. And as time went on, state legislation kind of mandated these solid waste districts, and there's a lot of history there, but part of that created the Athens and Hocking Solid Waste District over time. And that means Athens County and Hocking County are sort of involved from a local governance standpoint around solid waste issues, primarily to work around recycling, education, access to recycling, that type of stuff. And so as that took place, certain management and oversight kind of began to take control over that curbside program and other aspects of solid waste. And there was some mismanagement that took place also, and lack of community involvement over time. It got more distant, and people got, arm's length away, and less sort of progressive efforts, even to the point of kind of why this initiative was started.
Maybe not enough people recycling, or
not enough people recycling. But there's more than just that. The fact that not enough people recycling is maybe what we currently see or observe, but there's reasons for them not recycling that go much deeper. And so I'll speak about that. But part of it is when that curbside program existed, a temporary sort of facility was set up to process these recyclables. So I'll speak about that, but there's basically 4 pillars that I always touch upon when talking to folks, and that's 1, people do have to be educated about there is a recycling program available to them, and what that involves. 2, there has to be the infrastructure to collect that recycling and to process it. This is a big piece that's kind of behind the scenes that most people don't know about, but it's either, do you have a container, do you have a service that can pick up that material, and ultimately that material, whether it's separated like you currently have in the city of Athens, or if it's put together, it has to be processed.
Right.
And then it has to be sold. And that, by the sale of those materials, that subsidized part of the cost of the recycling program.
Right.
So currently, what we have in the city, it started with this little temporary facility, which has over time become a permanent facility. but it doesn't have the ability, it never innovated or updated itself to where it could process sorted material. So that's why everybody has to sort their material at the curb. You've got glass, you've got plastic, you've got paper. You know, all of those materials have to be sorted because there's no conveyor belt, there's no sorting line. Then it goes to that facility and it gets baled or processed and sold. So that's one of the biggest limitations, that even that step prevents a tremendous amount of the community, you know, students, you know, from recycling.
They don't want to mess with
They don't want to have to
sorting
sort it,
their
right?
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So that's already a huge barrier. And it's not that people don't want to. I mean, necessarily, they you know, it's just
They don't
extra
think they have the
effort.
time.
Right,
You
right.
know, they're like, oh, you mean I've got to put 4 different bags out here and 4 different things in the 4 different bags? You know?
Absolutely. It can get confusing too. I mean, there's not a whole lot of educational material on what's accepted or what's not.
Yep.
Especially with the student body, there's a big, you know, kind of transitory aspect of that, so information can get lost or hard to convey. But yeah, right, it's difficult. So right now, part of what our initiative has been doing is working with that local facility. It's called the Athens Hockey and Recycling Center, and it's what provides services to all residents in the city. And you can
and in the county too. That's where I take my recycling.
They do. They provide a lot of recycling services to the county. And I won't get into too much of the weeds of kind of some of the history and politics, because it's kind of confusing. But the solid waste district and the recycling center at one point, well, for the majority of its history, were kind of together. Even though they're kind of 2 separate entities, they were managed and operated. They had the same board, the same director, all of that for a long time. And that kind of complicated a lot of things, even funding that, you know, is provided through, you know, subsidized funding versus local funding, and it got very confusing. So as of just really this year, those 2 entities have been separated.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it is. It's a good thing. Now the recycling center can operate on its own. It can make its own choices. It can innovate. It can find solutions. And the solid waste district portion, who is supposed to make sure education and access to recycling is happening, can make its own decisions too. They still need to work together and inform each other, but they're no longer
hobbled, so
right,
to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now things are moving forward there. New materials are already being accepted at the recycling center. If you go to the recycling center itself, the physical plant, they have a drop-off point, and they'll even take plastic bags now there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So maybe you could, do you have a
Sure.
list in your head that you could just say what can be recycled at the recycling center?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, and this is something, you know, I'm personally working on with them actively, but you know, your typical plastic bottles, your number 1s and number 2 plastic bottles, and some jars and stuff like that. Not the clamshells or things of that nature, because these plastics, even though they say number 1 and like a number 1 clamshell, which is like, you know, it comes in berries or salad or something like that, and you have a number 1 bottle, the chemical makeup of the plastic is actually still different, even though they both have a number 1 on them. There's different memory ingrained in those plastics, so they can go to different markets for different purposes. So what the recycling center accepts is the number 1 bottles and the number 2 sort of bottles, or detergent and stuff like that. So those are also in your curbside program. You can do that. But glass, green, brown, and clear glass, you no longer have to separate your glass either. So before that was the case, you can you know, just put glass all in one thing, and they'll take the glass. Let's see here, any type of paper material without any type of like really glossy finish or something like that on it. They'll take paper. They will take magazines though. They also take newspaper,
So
cardboard.
you just have to separate the glossy from the non-glossy.
That's correct.
Okay.
And let's see, am I missing anything else? Tin, obviously, like any type of, you know, tin cans, aluminum foil. Even if you have scrap metal and you want to take it there, they'll take that. Like even some large appliances and stuff like that,
Really?
they will accept. There might be some things you might want to call about in advance, but
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's interesting because where we live, it's out in the county, there's a hillside on our property where the adjacent property had dumped all their trash. And a lot of it's been cleaned up over the years, but there's this one piece of, it's like a hitch for a big, huge truck, and I've not known what to do with it, but I bet they could dispose of it for me.
Probably,
Yeah.
yeah, if it's metal. I mean, I'm sure a lot of folks.
I think it's probably steel.
Steel, yeah, I'm sure the recycling center or others, there are a lot of people are interested in collecting scrap metal. I'm sure if it had a certain value to it, somebody would come in there and help you get it out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, they collect a lot of things. They're trying to become more progressive in what they do. Other materials that we're like researching are how do we take those other 1s and 2 plastics and other types of plastics. I'm working on that. Also even cartons, so like Snowville milk cartons and other cartons, aseptic packaging, like soup and broths come in,
Right.
things like
'Cause they're
that.
waxed.
Well, yeah, they have a number of layers like in them, wax and paper, and they even have a thin layer of aluminum in them as well. And most like the aseptic shelf-ready packaging for soups and stuff like that. But yeah, cartons, it's not wax, it's actually plastic. It's actually a lining of plastic that's in there. But yeah, so we're looking at how do we accept more of those materials. But the big thing that we're working on is how do we sort materials? How do we sort more of that commingled material? That's what like single stream or commingled are 2 terms for everything being mixed together. And that's really the next step. We're working on that in the interim, but also doing planning to build a new facility, a facility that can handle all of the recycling needs for the county, for Hocking County, for even the surrounding parts of the regions if needed. And that way, by doing that, what we're doing is we're keeping those materials local, we're keeping those jobs local. We're also not, if it were to be contracted out to some other hauler that was not locally centralized, if they were in Columbus or elsewhere, then that's that's a cost that's leaving our community. Those are jobs. The value of those materials are all leaving our community, and we no longer have control over the cost. So if we want to continue to recycle, they could say, hey, this is how much it's going to cost, and we have to pay it. But by having a local facility who can do that, and there's local partnerships around that, we have more control over the cost of that, and also those jobs and those revenues from the sale of materials. Also what that does is it makes those materials available to entrepreneurs and businesses who might want to use those materials locally. And that's something we do. We work a lot with different businesses. If you have an idea about a business for recycling materials, creating new products, offering new services, we help you through doing business planning, writing grants with you, help to market your business, a lot of stuff related to that. So if you have ideas, please contact us.
Well, I wouldn't say that Huntsville, Alabama is like the state of the art as far as recycling and stuff like that, but one of the things they did do was they had a very similar thing like what you're talking about, and that recycles glass. And they make a product out of the used glass and sell it. So I think it's amazing that people don't realize how useful, like you said, all this stuff that we think of as garbage really can be.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazingly useful. Again, all these materials surround us every day. I mean, it's not just the stuff that you drink, in your containers, but it's everything. Anything can be waste, but it's also a product. It's also a useful resource. And the level of creativity and innovation taking place in this sector around, even within our own community, but around the state, around the country, around the world right now, it's a problem. And it's a sector for problem solvers, people who like to be creative, who like to solve problems and help the community and, be efficient. That's what it's all about. So there's a tremendous amount of opportunity to do that. And so I think Athens, again, can become a leader in how to manage its resources, create new products. What are our needs? What are we purchasing a lot of that we can make ourselves, possibly from these recycled materials? I mean, these are simple questions that people, when they come up with the answers, create big businesses that, are widely successful. And, there's examples of those right here. But it takes a lot of working together, and those aren't the only issues, right? I mean, we have other issues. I mentioned dumping and burning. This is something that happens a lot in our community because folks don't typically and historically haven't had access to recycling in rural communities. And now there is more of that, but there needs to be even more of it and more permanent sites out there. And so we're working our way in that direction.
So here's a thought that just came to me as you were saying this. Because I live kind of in a very rural part of the county, I often see places where people have dumped old mattresses or furniture or, or other things. is there a way for that to be collected? I mean, is that something you guys are thinking about?
There's a couple different approaches to that, which includes, obviously trying to prevent it in the first place, either by offering folks some subsidized sort of services, like, hey, you don't have to throw this away. There's actually some funding for you to get, a pickup service even in rural communities for some folks. Or we do like cleanup drives, so we can come out to the community and, even depending on who our partners are, we can offer like a roll-off container in that community and say, hey, everybody, if you've got old stuff, come here and throw it away, today, and we'll also recycle whatever we can. But no, we actively do community cleanups of those dump sites.
Lovely.
And yeah, we get different grants from the state to help do that, Ohio EPA. And we go out there with community members, students, and actively just go and clean it up and get community involved with it and more aware. Now, there's also the health department, so the Athens Health Department, a particular individual there, Mike Cooper, has been doing a wonderful job of, getting these dump sites and focusing on them, cleaning them up, also finding, evidence and information in there about who's dumping them and being able to go to them and have them involved with cleaning it up or paying the fines or whatever is needed. So they've been doing a tremendous job. Also, even with burning issues, anything related to that. And so this has a huge impact on our community. The dumping and burning, it reduces the property value of what's around you. It also, when people burn trash, it releases a substance, a chemical. It's a man-made chemical. It's called a dioxin. You might have heard of dioxins before. It's actually one of the most harmful chemicals that man has made, and so it's in that plastic. When you burn it, it releases it. It's a carcinogen, and so when you're breathing that in, it's a cancerous effect that it can have. In fact, dioxins are everywhere. They're in all of us already, just because of the amount that's just released and out there through manufacturing, industry, but also burning. Burning releases the most dioxins of anything in our atmosphere. Just people burning trash. And it also, I was driving the other day down the road, and there was a wildfire that actually had gotten started from somebody burning their trash as well. So, there's a lot of different things that can happen. It's not a good thing, and we need to think about solutions and let people know there's opportunities out there. Contact the Solid Waste District, contact the Recycling Center, contact the Health Department, and people, they'll help you connect to the resources that you need to not do that.
Yeah. Oh, good. What else, what other things does the Zero Waste Initiative focus on besides like recycling and?
Yeah, I'll mention a couple of things. We've got a really interesting arm of our program that involves AmeriCorps members. And so AmeriCorps members, for those who don't know, are sort of like members, like sort of volunteers in service to America. That's what a VISTA is. It's a similar position and role. You kind of take on a year-long position, and you receive certain benefits for doing that. You receive a living stipend and also some educational money that you can go towards, college or other needs related to education. But anyways, they come on. We have 3 of those, and they focus on different program areas, which include sort of education in the schools and workshops, other workshops, getting school programs started for recycling, taking youth out there, letting them learn about compost and what happens with these materials, getting them involved. Another aspect is sort of, we do a lot of work with local businesses. It's actually kind of a newer program. We have sort of a waste assessment process that's coupled with what we call the Zero Waste Pledge. And basically what that is we go into a business and we'll look at everything that you're kind of taking in, all the materials that you're producing and generating, and what kind of services you need to recycle those materials or compost those materials or reduce the amount of materials that are coming in the first place. So we help you just think about all of that and use local services and providers to, get your needs put in place. And after we do that assessment, the business wants, they can make what's called a pledge, and basically that business is pledging to help to reach zero waste goals. So they make sort of 3 goals they want to achieve within a year, and they can then use this decal that can go in their window that people can recognize, consumers can recognize, and maybe want to use that service. It also does other things too. It just connects. It's basically like another way to fuel the local zero waste economy, because you got businesses who want services. We're also connecting them with service providers who are offering those services and creating sort of new products even from the materials that are being generated. So you can see it's already starting to connect and have people work together. Residents can also do that. So even if you're a resident here and you want that service, we do that for homes as well.
That's great.
So
yeah.
So there's even more, but I mean, there's a couple more things that we do at that program I'll just mention briefly. One of them is that cleanup opportunity. So, we go out there with the community members and we help them to do cleanups if they want to. We also just got a really neat resource. It's a trailer, a beautification trailer. So if, let's say, neighborhoods in the city of Athens wanted to, beautify their area, we've got a trailer we can pull right into the community. It's full of tools, rakes, shovels, things to pick up trash with, other like blower, all sorts of things that a community could come and use these resources, within a day or two, they could, beautify their area all by working together and using these community resources. So
that is amazing.
Mm-hmm. So that's available.
I really like that idea.
Yeah. It's a great thing, and it's something new, so it's just actually being debuted this Sunday for Athens Beautification Day. It'll actually be out in the community being used for the first time. So, and it's available to all residents. There's no cost to it as well. Let's see, and the last one I wanted to mention, we do a lot with other types of zero waste events in the community, like Boogie on the Bricks, Bounty on the Bricks as well, Paw Paw Festival, Nelsonville Music Festival, other events in the region that take place, and we work with them and help them reach zero waste goals, which is basically achieving 90% or more sort of waste diversion of everything. So that it can be as much as thousands of pounds of compost and recycling that's diverted at these huge events.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a cool thing too.
Yeah, and especially when you've got that many people in one place, especially with the Nelsonville Music Festival or the Paw Paw Fest. It's huge numbers of people, and they really generate a lot of what would otherwise be trash.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And getting people engaged, they often don't know or don't think about, oh, this can be composted, or, this is recyclable, or I don't need to, I can do this. We're all doing it together. How come we can't do this in another setting as well? So it's a nice transition and awareness opportunity.
Yeah. So Rural Action has a whole sort of section of its program that's all about education, and Rural Action goes into the schools and does a whole lot of things. What are you specifically, you've talked a little bit about it, but could you say a little more about what you're doing in the way of educational efforts?
Yeah, I think education is part of every Rural Action program to some extent or another, and we do have a program that's just specifically focused on environmental education. With us, again, I told you we do a lot of activities in the schools, a lot with youth, a lot with even partnering with people to help make things even more visible. And so it's really kind of leveraging how do we educate people, even from making their own cleaning supplies from local products or whatever that are environmentally friendly, to knowing what's available in the community, or just how do we use materials after they're done with their initial life. Those are just kind of creative things to get people involved with. But a lot of the stuff in the schools is mostly around what's being disposed of in the cafeteria. What do the kids think about this? Getting them out there. We actually took a group of kids out to the Trimble Land Lab. It's like a community forest land lab area that the school can use, in partnership with the Association of our Appalachian Association for Appalachia or something. I forget the actual acronym. But taking them out there, and they participate in planting trees. They participate in doing cleanups of the sites themselves. They also learn about amphibians and what's going on in the riparian area. So it's just kind of getting them involved. A lot of these kids, even though they live out here in this beautiful environment, don't get the chance to get outside and really even know what's in their backyard, or get their hands dirty, all of these things. So it really just opens their eyes up. And once you learn the name of a plant species and what's going on with it and what it's used for, that you've already made a relationship with that, and that can, again, just change people's lives forever. So
Yeah.
those types of things.
You're doing a lot of networking, too, with other organizations. You mentioned a couple of different directions that's going. Who are some of the people that you partner with as far as all of this, besides, like the recycling effort and so on?
Right. No, it's all about partnership and collaboration. And really what I'll speak about is, in order to do any of this, it takes everybody's involvement. It takes leveraging as many local resources as possible. It's a new way of collaborating, of leveraging our assets, our resources, our funding. The more that we can work together, the lower we can reduce the cost for making these things possible. And it takes everybody working together to even make it possible. So it's all about collaboration. I'd say anybody is involved, and everybody. It's even hard to name. There are hundreds of partners, even national partners, who are helping us, find resources, and businesses who want to help come here and use materials or offer an assistance. It's really wide-ranging. But one of the things we've done to help organize all of that collaboration, and this is pretty interesting and innovative, is we've, over the past 2 years, have been working with all these partners, probably close to 70 or so different partnerships, to form what we call the Zero Waste Action Plan for Athens and Hocking County, or Athens and Hocking Zero Waste Action Plan. Mm-hmm. And what that is it's an actual plan with schools, with health departments, with local enforcement, with local government, with private businesses, you name it, they're involved, all kind of providing their input on what are the goals, the common goals that we have, and how do we want to get there? What are the steps we need to take to achieve those goals? So by doing that, you're getting a lot of investment and buy-in from people, this common voice. And so that action plan...
Everybody agreeing that this is something we need to do.
Exactly, and that's on a number of levels. It's everything related to waste. That's from reusing materials, repairing materials, construction and demolition, compost and organics, your regular recyclables, how do we prevent illegal dumping and burning? Also, how do we create markets? How do we create market development for businesses to use these materials as feedstocks and create products? Mm-hmm. So all of these things are in that action plan, and it's very much a collaborative piece. It also draws in other interested parties. That says these people want to work together. They've got a plan. They're gonna, they're avidly trying to accomplish these goals. And yeah, we want to be a part of that. We want to help with them.
Yeah. I think a lot of times philanthropic organizations and people who have money that they want to throw in this kind of a direction, mm-hmm. what they're mostly looking for is people that are already committed to the goals, mm-hmm. and are showing their commitment. So when you can say, this is our plan, they're much more likely to say, okay, I want to feed that. That's mm-hmm. got to happen.
Absolutely, and that's pretty much what it's partly for as well, right? I mean, that's a big piece of it. But also, if you want to write grants, if there's something like a piece of infrastructure that can solve multiple pieces or multiple persons and partners' problems, by doing that, now we know what that is, and now we can write that grant and relieve that pressure and have better access to the equipment that we need. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's multiple ways it can be used. And one way is, is to engage people in the community. I mean, I think everybody has something to offer, whether it's your personal knowledge or skills. There's a way that you can get involved with this action plan. And again, this action plan is not ours, it's the community's. This has been through hundreds of people, in fact, hundreds of, people who've been involved with it, community meetings, et cetera, that have taken place, that have gotten their input, and that's created this. So there's ways that people can do volunteer opportunities, internships, all sorts of things. And so all that information is located on our website. If people go to ruralaction.org, and there's a list of programs, and I encourage you to look at all the programs there, but the Zero Waste Initiative is in there. And if you click on that, there's enormous amount of information on our website regarding anything with this issue, where to take your recycled materials, the action plan, stuff about the trailer for community cleanups, any of the things that I spoke about today and more are all on there. So
what do people do when they have things that are toxic and need to be gotten rid of? You know, like say somebody moves into a house and there's all these old paint cans sitting around. What can you guys help with that? Can you direct people in a better way to dispose of something like that?
Yeah, we can. In fact, I mean, it's a common thing, and it's one of the things that really needs some attention. There's a lack of sort of hazardous waste days or ability to dispose of that material. But we can either direct you there, or you can go to some other partners, you know, immediately to ask some of those questions, depending on what that material is. The Ohio EPA has branches of folks that work just on hazardous waste and helping people connect to, if you have this material, where it needs to go. The Solid Waste District as well, the Athens-Hawkins Solid Waste District, they have a website. You can go to them, and they're a local community resource too. But there's some, it's been every other year, and I think it's starting to move to every year that there's access for this people in the city, if you're a city resident, for a household hazardous waste day, where you can take those materials and drop them off, and they'll be recycled or disposed of properly.
When do those usually? I mean, is it really kind of variable, or do they have a certain time of year when they do it?
Yeah, and I'm trying to recall, but I couldn't
But they
say
would
the
probably.
actual date.
But all they'd have to do is call.
Yep.
Rural Action up.
Yeah, myself. We can always direct you, or we can find that information for you. Again, calling the Solid Waste District, they're typically the ones, even the city itself, you know, if you called them, they'll have that information. But yeah, I mean, it's something we need to have more of and better access to.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm trying to think of what I haven't said, that I haven't said or you haven't said.
Yeah.
There's just so much to remember because there's so much going on.
There is. There's a whole lot going on. You know, every day it's something new and different. But these things are really kind of fascinating. The Zero Waste Action Plan, for example, is, you know, it's the first of its kind in the state.
Athens is almost always first with the good stuff.
It is. It's very much a progressive community working together to make these things happen. So, I mean, that's something to be, you know, proud of as well. But, you know, there's a lot of interesting and fascinating things going on with recycling, and I just encourage people to get, you know, open their eyes, you know, do a little research, you know, even just looking up innovative new products. I mean, it's just amazing what people are thinking of these days and how they can get involved. But they do have an impact on it, and they do have a voice, and all of that. They talk to their political leaders. I mean, policy has a lot to do with this. It's a very political subject, and that kind of interrupts the process and the speed of, you know, accomplishing these goals, much like it does for all other areas of sustainability.
Yeah.
But this one especially, it's very political, and it's very much big business.
The people who own the trash companies make a lot of money.
Oh yeah,
most of them.
Yeah, it's huge. That's, you know, prevents.
Especially if they're not local.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. Big companies. You know, they're interested in taking the material to the landfill. That's where they make the most money. Mm-hmm. You know, Appalachia in general. You know, we import a ton of waste. We import, you know, probably in the top, you know, 5 to 10. Ohio itself, the state, is the top importer of waste from around the country. A lot of that waste comes from New York and New Jersey, but most of it ends up in Appalachia, Ohio, and you're talking about somewhere between 4 and 5 million tons of waste a year. And that's hard to fathom. I mean, it's hard to think about 4 or 5 million tons, but that's pretty much. I mean, Ohio itself, in terms of just municipal solid waste, generates somewhere, and I believe, just looking at these numbers recently, around 6 million tons just as a state. So we're almost importing, you know, quite a bit, you know, 2/3 of that.
Yeah, which is a little frightening, really.
It is frightening. Again,
that we're taking everybody, and that's why when we start a program like this and get it really up and running, and then it becomes a sort of state-of-the-art program that other people can look to when they want to implement something like this.
That's correct. I mean, really what we're trying to do is just develop models and things for the public, for other people in other communities, toolkits, examples, case studies, all that stuff, so other communities can do this and have that information at their fingertips. because that's what it's going to take. It's not going to be the city of Athens that solves these problems itself. It's going to be a regional thing, and it takes a region outside the borders of Athens County itself to really make these programs be able to sustain themselves. And to have the impact that we want to see. We're all in this together. So that's also what we're working on too, is more regional planning.
So Athens is partnered with Hawking, but if there were people in Meigs County or Vinton County that wanted to utilize some of your programs and stuff like that, that's possible.
Yeah, it is possible. Very much so. We already work with a lot of folks in Meigs County, in Vinton County, in Perry County, all these different areas. We work with them and just growing our capacity to be able to do that even more so. So it takes time, but to some degree we'll definitely help anybody out there trying to achieve these goals. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm amazed and stunned by how wide-ranging that program is. It's very good. So what could you just, because some people might not, we've been talking a lot about rural action, there might actually be some people out there that don't know too much about rural action. Could you say a little bit about?
Yeah, absolutely. Rural action, an amazing both sustainable community development, economic development, market-based strategies. It tries to really just focus on what are the needs of our region to live healthy with our environment, with the resources that surround us. And it focuses on a couple different program areas. So I talked about the Zero Waste Initiative today, which is what I coordinate and encompasses a lot of my time. But there are also programs in sustainable agriculture, which is helping develop local markets for food-based strategies. They also run the Chester Hill Produce Auction, which I encourage you to go and visit and take part in.
I've been there. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's a lovely time. Great food, great prices, and contributing to the local economy. But also doing other things around helping farmers get the tools they need, get the resources, the education, all of that type of stuff to the local farmers. They do a lot of that. We've also got a sustainable forestry program, which helps people all the way from learning about how to manage your forests, even if you're thinking about cutting trees on your land, how to do that properly, who to talk with, who are the professionals out there, how to even grow value-added crops in the substory of the forest, how to plant medicinal plants as well, all these different things.
So what are some of the value-added, products that could come out of someone, if someone had, 20 acres in forest or something, what are some of the other things that they could do with that?
There's a tremendous amount of opportunity there, all the way from sort of growing mushrooms, which are fairly easy, don't take a whole lot of time once you get them started, once you do the initial process, and they can grow for years. They kind of go through bursts each year, all the way to planting things like golden seal and ginseng in their forests, which are highly valuable and usable medicinal herbs from things that naturally occur there, like pawpaws and spice bush. Things like that are all there. You can grow a tremendous amount of food in a small area just in your forest, and medicine for yourself as well. So all those products can be value added, made into new products or processed or whatever, even on a home scale.
And so if people wanted to get into something like that, they could just go to Rural Action and ask for information. And
that's true. Yep, they could do that. They could talk to Tanner Filia, is the name of the person who's kind of in charge of that value-added non-timber forest products is what we call that, which is not the timber itself, but other materials.
Everything else that's sustainable.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So we're a resource for that. We'd love for people to call in and ask questions and help them out. We do have a couple other programs too. Besides that, I mentioned we also have an environmental education program, huge asset to the schools in Athens County and in the region, to getting kids involved and understanding what their environment's about. Just some of these just interesting facts about nature, getting their hands dirty, anything and everything related to the outdoors, basically. They help kids get out there and experience that. They also have summer camps, so if you are in the city and you've got kids and you want to get them involved, look up Monday Creek or Sunday Creek summer camps. There's a number of other ones, Raccoon Creek, all where getting these kids outdoors and learning about watersheds and having a great time doing it.
Yeah.
And then we also have, let's see, a couple other just small aspects, or big ones actually. The watershed programs themselves, which are some of Rural Action's oldest programs, deal with acid mine drainage primarily in our watersheds, and this is from the coal mining industry. And when water kind of seeps into our hillsides and gets into these old mine shafts, basically when that water leaves, it's filled with heavy metals and different things, aluminum and iron and different things like that. So that's all in our water. It reduces the pH of the water, raises it depending, and eliminates some of that marine life, that aquatic and riparian sort of life aspect. So they go and they have to clean those out and repair those and neutralize the water and get fish back into the streams.
We think that just because we really don't have coal in this area very much anymore. I remember growing up with, friends in school whose parents were coal miners and stuff like that. And at one time it was a very active and flourishing source of energy and fed the economy, and people had good jobs and all that kind of thing. But it's really not that way anymore. What's left is not very useful. It's all soft coal, really. And now what we're having to do, 40, 50 years down the road is, or well longer really, because it's been going on here for over 100 years, is the environmental degradation that comes from that. We don't think about who's going to pay the price when we do that kind. It's like fracking. We don't look at who pays the price when we do what we do to the land and the water.
It's a huge thing, and in fact,
we're still fixing it.
Yeah, it will never be fixed. It may exist forever. That our water, just could be polluted just from this acid mine drainage. Our streams, the health of that, our own drinking water in our backyards. So absolutely, we never know that. Even with the waste that we generate, all of this, it's all related, and right. I mean, it's having huge effects on our health, on our community, on our environment, on our economy, and we need solutions, and we need to work at it from multiple directions. But everybody has the potential to get involved.
Yeah, and there's something really satisfying about knowing you're making a difference. It just, even if all you're doing is changing one other person's mind about it, is that has its own ramifications. When you can convince a 10-year-old kid that his family should be recycling, and he takes the initiative and gets them on that track, then things really do change.
Absolutely, they do, and we've seen that happen. We've seen that exact case take place, and I think it just helps us, each of us, finding more about who we are and our place in this universe as well, on this earth, just connecting to our resources and relating to them a little bit more, and knowing that we can be the designers of our environment. We have much more intellect and skills and creativity than we think we do, and there's ways to really do that with what's around you.
So one question I've had for a long time is, there's all this material that needs to be recycled. Have you put any thought into an industry that would be safe to put here in Athens that would do that, would actually recycle those materials directly and use them in a different capacity? I know everybody thinks of Athens as like so economically depressed and so on, and it takes money to do startup for industry, but are there any kinds of industry like that are small enough that we could actually do that here?
Absolutely, there are, and this is a big part of our effort and mission, is to try and do that, see these resources as potential jobs and products for our community. So there are examples of that around the country. In fact, we're having some folks come here next week, actually, that are experts in sort of reusing materials and value adding these products. And so they're coming here. They're also working with 10 other communities across the country, and we're one of those, hopefully, to do that. So there's just a tremendous amount of kind of momentum going on. But yeah, I mean, all the way from value adding things at a small scale, a cottage industry scale, to processing materials, chipping up plastics, to manufacturing new products from those materials are all possible on a variety of scales, right here. And there are places in our community where that can take place.
Wow. That's very heartwarming, and it just makes me feel good to know that those kinds of things are going on in our community. It's very, just makes me feel good. So I want to thank y'all for being with us today, and I want to thank you, Kyle, for coming in and talking to us, and I look forward to maybe talking to some more of your coworkers at Rural Action, because so much good stuff is happening there.
Absolutely.
And well, just keep doing that good work.
Great. Well, thank you for this opportunity, and yes, thanks to everybody out there for recycling. So keep it up.